The next department that appears to be on the chopping block is the Department of Education. Just earlier today, Democratic members of Congress were blocked from entering the department's headquarters. Democratic lawmakers had met outside to protest Donald Trump and Elon Musk's plan to abolish the department entirely, as well as attempting to seek a meeting with the department's senior leadership. Lawmakers were not only blocked by security holding the front door, but also by Department of Homeland Security police seen in multiple videos from members of Congress. Lawmakers were told by security guards stationed outside that nobody had accepted a meeting and that they needed an escort in the building in order to enter the building.
The door, he says he's a federal employee. He won't tell us who gave him permission to do this. All he knows is he's going to stand here and tell the members of Congress who are elected, who vote for the funding for all of them in this building, and for the student loans, and for the Title I families, he's going to tell us that we can't come in and talk with anybody. Is that right?
Joining me now is one of the lawmakers who tried to enter the Department of Education today, Congresswoman Jahana Hayes, Democrat of Connecticut, and a 2016 National Teacher of the Year. It's a great pleasure, Congresswoman. And, let's just get right to the bottom. Who tried to stop you, and under what authority were they acting to block members of Congress? That's the part I have to wrap my head around. Who fund the very department that they're standing there blocking members from coming into the building?
Well, thank you, Michael, and it's great to be here. And that's a great question. We did not get an answer to that. The man who came out, he met us at the door. The door was locked, and then he came out and met us and said we were not allowed entry to the building. We had to be on a guest list. And when I said, well, what is your name? What is your title? All he would say is, I work for the Department of Education. Never said who he was, kept pulling out a badge and pulling it back quickly. But we said, we're members of Congress. We can come into the building. We can request a meeting. Would not even let us inside the building. Amazing.
It's just amazing. Well, it also kind of begs the question, what do you do next? I mean, this is the fourth time or so that members of Congress have been denied access to federal property. It's not a question of what do Democrats do, what a Republican, what do members of Congress do when something like this happens? What do you think should happen next?
Well, I think that's really important. I think part of the problem is the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has ceded all of our Article I powers to the president. And in this case, the Speaker of the House should be saying we need to respect the separation of powers. But I know that is not going to happen. So we are bracing for lawsuits. We've sent letters to the department requesting a meeting. 96 members of Congress signed on to this meeting. Outside groups are gearing up to file lawsuits because we read Project 2025. We know what's next. We know what's coming. And Elon Musk and Donald Trump, this whole administration is going play by play in what we saw in this Project 2025. But one thing I don't think people understand. For me, it was important to go to the department because and request this meeting because I'm open to, if you want to audit the department, if you want to make reforms, let's talk about it. Let's work together and see what we need to do. They don't want to do that. They want to tear everything down, just like they talked about in your last segment. And I hope people understand what that means. A lot of the things that Republicans are complaining about that they don't like about the department with curriculum and things that happen in the school, those are local issues, not decided by the Department of Education. What the department does handle is the $1.6 trillion in student loan funds, special education, making sure that students aren't discriminated against, collecting data and statistics from school, preparing educators to teach our students, running Title I programs for our lowest income communities. All of those things will be affected. And people need to understand if those programs are cut, one of two things are going to happen. If the department is cut, one of two things are going to happen. Either those programs are going to go away or their taxes are going to go up to fund their local school systems. Our children deserve better. 49 million children attend public school in this country. And for Elon Musk to come in with no planning, no forethought, and just plow through these agencies with no plan to rebuild them or what's going to happen to the people that are affected is just completely wrong. And the members of Congress are going to stand up to that.
It appears that Elon Musk, Vice President Elon Musk, I guess, I don't know, he's got some role, some official role, thinks that the Department of Education is already dead. In response to Congressman Maxwell Frost's post about the DOE, he said, quote, "No such department exists in the federal government." You're an educator, a former teacher of the year, someone who knows education better than most. You talked just a moment ago about the programs that are impacted both at the federal and state level. What does this ultimately mean for parents out there and school systems across the country that now will have to scramble, to your point, to figure out where those federal dollars come? Because a block grant is not going to cut it. And we know how block grants ultimately work, right?
Yes. And that's just it. Elon Musk's children don't need public schools. They're not relying on the services that are provided in public school. Donald Trump's children don't need public schools. It's my friends and neighbors. It's the kids that I taught. 7.5 million children receive special education services, wraparound services, accommodations, IEPs, the things that they need in order to learn and meet their educational goals. So many of our rural communities that don't have charter schools, that wouldn't be able to take advantage of some of these voucher programs. People need to think about that. All of those children will be denied a public education. When we had our committee hearing yesterday, the chairman said 1 million students access vouchers for private charter schools. They want to take all this money from the Department of Education and put it into voucher programs. There are not enough spaces for all of the children. What are we going to do with all of these kids? You know, and people really need to think about that. A nation that doesn't invest in their children, that doesn't prepare them to be global citizens, to meet the workforce, we are going to lose a whole generation of kids. And it's not just the Department of Education. They're going after funding for Head Start and HHS. I don't understand this fascination or fixation on pulling money back that we use as resources for our children. And they talk about government efficiency. They talk about the budget. They're not going to the top for all of those big ticket items, like military contractors, like closing some of the tax loopholes that they gave to billionaires. They're taking money from the most vulnerable children, from our global aid programs, a fraction of the budget that really helps invest in the future of this country. And parents need to think about that. Democrat parents, Republican parents, grandparents, everyone needs to understand exactly what this means if the federal government, the Department of Education is stripped and those services are lost. Before and after school programs, lunch programs, services for students with special needs, all of our resources that schools have, our sports programs, our music programs, all of those things gone. Districts are going to have to make tough decisions about what they can keep, and our kids will have the bare minimum in schools, and teachers will not be prepared.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Congresswoman Jahana Hayes, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.